Hello, we're back here. We are on day 12 of the 30 for 30 critique sessions, 30 days. I'm excited to look at F64 Elite member YVONNE Holman's image here. This is going to be really exciting. But before we get into that, we've got a twist. And this twist comes from Sonia Bella. She has been featured here once. I think it was day 3. Had a nice featured image there. Her twist is the inverted image challenge. Use 3 inverted image methods as part of the critique. You can use mask, blend diff, etc. Oh my. Okay, so there's a course I've created called the inverted image, and from there you can find data on the other side of your image, almost like Stranger Things, the upside down, right? There's something on the other side that you can use in your images to help with certain things. Normally, I only do this maybe with 1 layer in my image, and I do use it pretty routinely. But now I got to use 3 of them. Wow, okay. So I did say that this is going to be pretty tough. And then so she said, okay, well, you can use at least 1 of them as an inverted mask, which is actually great because when I recorded that course, I wasn't really big into channels. That was ages ago that I recorded that course. So I teach a lot of inverting channels now in order to find the data that you want. So that's actually gonna be perfect. If I would have recorded the inverted image course today, I would incorporate more of those inverted channels in there. So this will be fun. YVONNE, I really enjoy this piece. You know, the reason why I like this so much is that, you know, a lot of times as a landscape photographer, we want like epic, impactful imagery that, you know, just blows the viewer away. But it's not always about that. Sometimes you can go out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in a cloudy sky, see that big, bold, beautiful blue sky and that big, bold, yellow, freshly harvested field and be like, wow, look at this country that we live in. It is beautiful, right? So I get that. I don't think that every landscape image has to be some banger of a shot that's just going to explode the viewer's mind when they see it. I don't think that that's the way it needs to be at all. So I enjoy this space because it actually reminds me a lot of the drives that I do as I'm driving back and forth here in Missouri. I see a lot of this kind of stuff when we go, especially when I drive over into Kansas. So I like this. For me, honestly, it just kind of feels like home. You've represented that for me, and I really enjoy that space, especially the color theory juxtaposition here. The beautiful balance between gold and blue, and then you've got a third color here that just kind of comes in and says, hey, we're here too. We're green. We like this place. Which is, you know, if you're in the pigment world, yellow and blue would make green. So you've got a beautiful color theory thing happening here. Now, I do have a couple of disconnects, and one of them is that the blue just seems really dark, not just saturated, but also really dark. And I want to see if we can tame that a little bit. The other thing I have is that there's like this brightness that we have to those highlight areas that I think we can cut through some of that too, so it's not quite as punchy and strong, or maybe just put it only in the places where we really want the viewer's eye to be. I think that might be the key there. And what I mean by that is like this area right here. It's very bright right here, very bright right here, all around this area. I think there's just a certain like undertone of brightness. It's a little bit too strong there. And the sky. I love the sky. I really do. But I feel like it's trying to get just as detailed as the foreground. And when that happens, it creates this lack of depth. So when the sky is really saturated and dark like that, and also very detailed, it takes away from the depth of the foreground, which then flattens the image. So let's get into the work. I've got to figure out how to do all this with inverted image techniques. So the first thing I want to tackle is the blue sky. And before I do that, let me press C for the crop tool and press the straighten tool. Maybe just make sure that this horizon line, it is a little bit off, but I wonder if that's done deliberately or if maybe the composition will be better if we fix it. And, you know, I think, honestly, like, I kind of like that before, but let's see, after, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make the executive decision to keep that horizon line straight because that gives my eye a sense of balance. Okay, so I'll also carve this in just a little bit so that this is dead center. I want that to be dead center. I'm not afraid of putting things dead center. And then we have the rule of thirds right on that subject there. I think that'll actually incorporate that a little bit better. Let's look at our before. Yeah, I think that's necessary. I would definitely do that. Okay. But it could have been that the camera was actually straight, but that the land wasn't straight. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to go with that crop. That'll be good. Okay, so now the first thing I want to do is target the blue. So my initial thought for this was to go into the channels and find the channel that would have the most data for that blue area. So, you know, initially you're thinking, well, Blake, just get an HSL adjustment layer and drop the blue, right? I mean, Well, yeah, but I want to restrict this just to that blue area. And what I found lately is that channels have a lot of really cool data in them that can make the most natural approaches to almost any adjustment. Let's find a mask that'll work for us. I'm looking at the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel. So my initial thought was to take the blue channel and look at the blue channel. But if we look at the channel data that we have here, and we think about this in inversions, which can be very difficult to do. So instead of trying to think about this in inversions, let's go over here and put an inverted adjustment layer on top of this image. Now we'll go over to channels. Now I'll look at the channels. So when I look at these channels now, let me get this set up so I can just see them channel by channel. So when I look at these channel by channel, look at this. The opposite of the red channel actually contains quite a bit of that blue data that I'm actually struggling with. So what I found on the opposite side of the data that's already in our image is that there's a mask better than the blue mask that can give me the channel data that I need to cut that blue there. So I'm going to press the Control key and click on this red channel here. And then I'm going to press my layers palette and then turn off the eyeball for the inverted layer. And I can go back here and just click on this too, and that'll get us back into the RGB. And I'm going to make an HSL adjustment layer. So now this HSL adjustment layer, if we look at this very carefully, is only going to be affecting what? Anything that is in the area of white. So because I already have a mask that's working on just those blues anyway, I'm just going to come in here and grab the saturation and pull this down a little bit, just like that. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I know it's going to hit everything in the foreground too because that was part of the channel data, but that's okay. I'll just pull this down a little bit to about right here and then pull this up and make it a little bit brighter as well, just like that. Okay. Now, I do like what's happening with that, but the problem that I also see here is that it's affecting these darkest dark areas. When I bring this brightness up, that's the brightness that I want for that blue. I really do want to cut that blue so it has a little bit more brightness in just the blue. But I don't really like what's happening to the image as a whole when I do this. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the visionary panel and press the plus dark luminosity mask. That will ensure that when I do this in the sky, the dark areas of the clouds don't get hit quite as much as that. So this is the inverted channel of the red channel that we then added the dark luminosity mask to. Okay, so I'll press B for the brush tool and then brush this in. Okay, cool. Hey man, you know, when you give me a challenge, I'm going to accept it. It's up to you if you can follow it or not. All right, so now we've got the saturation that's cut for the sky. I think that works out pretty well. Let's address the detail that I had in that sky. There's actually a technique that I use in that course where you can make a natural haze look, which think of this kind of like an Orton effect, but it's not going to give you an Orton effect. It's really interesting. So to do this, let's go up here. Let's press Control, Shift, Alt, and E to make a stamp. That'll give me a pixel layer for all of the work that I've just done here. And I'm going to press Control I to invert this. Now I'm going to press soft light here. Okay. And this is going to give me kind of a natural kind of hazy look. Now, if I were to go into filter and go to blur and try to Gaussian blur this, what's happening here? It's actually making it more detailed. It's making it more detailed because I've inverted that data, okay, to get the opposite of this data. But look at the haze that we get there. It kind of cuts through all of that contrast. So I need to do the opposite of a blur now. And the opposite of a blur would be sharpening. So I'm going to go to filter, I'm going to go to other, and I'm going to go to high pass. And with this high pass, look at this. Look at that haze that we get up there. Isn't that actually really beautiful? In my opinion, this actually looks more like a soft focus kind of haze than we would have if we just took a Gaussian blur and an Orton effect. It's a really powerful haze effect. Wow, look at that. That's actually really wonderful. So I'm going to press OK on that. And I'll just borrow and steal the mask that we already used. I won't include this as part of it because technically I am using inverted data again. But I'll just Alt or Option, click and borrow that. And now that's only happening for the sky. And it's blocking out those darkest dark areas to give us this really nice ethereal feel to the sky. We look before, that sky is demanding this attention from saturation and from contrast. But we're saying, hold on a second. This is the star of the show down here. So let's carve that out. We did just carve it out. And we actually made that foreground feel like it's more prominent now in front of us. All right, so I need to cut the brightness now. How am I going to cut the brightness? Okay. So let me do this. I'm going to grab a inverted layer, okay? And I'm going to look at what's happening here. When I look at this, an inverted layer, you can see where all the brightness is. It's right here and it's right here, okay? When we invert that, we're going to use this data against itself. So I'm going to use something like linear light because it's kind of like dodging and burning. This will essentially make if I bring my fill all the way down and then slowly start to bring it up, it's going to make those highlight areas darker. Look at that. Okay. So then those highlight areas aren't going to get quite as strong. It's a nice way to cut through some of that that highlight brightness there. Okay, look at that. Okay, nice. So I'll press B for the brush tool, and then I'm just gonna brush here with black and brush away this area right here. Boom, boom, and then maybe this area right here to bring the eye into there. Okay, so now we're tying together this space and this space together. Oh my gosh. All right, so we use the inverted concept to make an inverted mask selection for the blues up top that was not in the blue channel, it was actually in the red channel. Okay, then we came over here and we inverted the data so that we can make this natural type of haze effect. When you have inverted data, you can't blur it because that will then sharpen it. So you have to do the opposite. So we sharpened an inverted layer to get a haze. And then the last thing we did was we looked at the brightest areas in the image and we just knocked them down a little bit. And we could probably paint this in anywhere we want to draw the viewer's eye to. I should actually recommend that. You can brush this in anywhere you want to draw the viewer's eye to now, in areas of highlight, and kind of poke holes through this. And look at that. Dang, that's actually pretty cool. So there's going to be some people that are watching this, they're like, you know, you really could have just used this HSL adjustment layer on the color blue, and you could have just done this, and you could have just done that. And yes, you're right, you can. But if you never watched this before, you wouldn't realize that there's important data on the opposite side of the data that you're looking at, and it can actually give you some really natural adjustments. Sometimes going in and grabbing the HSL and just dropping that down doesn't make a natural adjustment. Sometimes when we make an Orton effect and it just blurs the junk out of our image, it doesn't make a natural effect. So when we use the inverted data, we're actually using the data in the image against itself when we're working through these disconnects. It's a much more difficult way to think, I will give you that. But on F64 Elite, there's a course called the Inverted Image that kind of discusses this whole concept. And our featured image, wow, this comes from an anonymous F64 Elite member, and I think that this is wonderful. You know, as I look at this, I just get navigated right to the back of the image through this water path that leads me there. And then the sky just explodes. And if I look down at that path, you know, where the path of water is right around in this area, I can tell that those trees are probably pretty tall. So this image is massive, the vastness and just how much it brings me from the foreground right to the background. And I want to say that it whooshes me there, but it doesn't. I'm not on a jet airplane flying through this image. I'm on like a biplane going nice and slow, just traversing down that path and enjoying everything that you've presented for me on the left and the right hand side of this photo. And I think that it just pulls me in. You didn't go too far with any of the colors, you didn't go too far with any of the tonal values, and it just feels good. I like it. I really do. So thank you for submitting this. This is wonderful. Our impact on Give Kids Art right now, man, I gotta say I'm grateful. I'm really grateful. I'm grateful for all of the donations that are coming in for Give Kids Art that are coming from outside of F64 Academy, F64 Elite, outside of YouTube, just people that are seeing this and coming together with the mission. I really appreciate you for doing that. That's awesome. I also appreciate all the people that are submitting images from F64 Elite. We got to give them a round of applause too, because without them, we don't have this, and that's actually pretty cool. So we're at $5,327, which equates to 355 art kits, and we still have, 18 more days to go? So I'm excited about that. And a little heads up about tomorrow. There will be no twist tomorrow. Okay, so as much as I enjoy this, I love this. This is a lot of fun. I've made the executive decision to not do twists on Sunday so that I can pre-record those. I love you guys. This is a lot of fun, but I love church too. So I don't want to miss that, because every morning I'm waking up to do these, and I'm not going to miss church with my family. So I'm going to pre-record Sundays from now on, and there will be no twist for Sunday. So you're going to be twist free on Sunday. We're changing the rules a little bit here, but for good reason. I'll see you tomorrow on day 13.